Hi, Pete. Just working? Pete, are you there? Testing? Hi, Victor.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm good. By the way, what link did you use to get in here?
Well, I have had this link for a while on my Google Calendar, so
Okay, same link.
yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So I guess you change that or
I didn't change it, but usually folks jump in a little bit early, and so I was wondering if maybe there
mm,
has been a a mishap with the link. So
yeah.
I see Jaime here, so that gives me some confidence that people are using the right link, or I'm
All
using the
right.
right link.
I took it from my Google Calendar, so I think it was the invite that you had sent out. So, and plus
Okay.
it's Halloween, so it's already 5 o'clock on the East Coast, and maybe
Yeah.
there's already handled candy, but it's only 4 o'clock here in Houston, so
Okay.
I don't think they're gonna start knocking on the door until another hour or so. So I think we're safe.
Yeah. All right. Hi, Swap Neil. Let me see if I can let Pete in. Hi, Pete. Okay, so we'll just give folks a minute here to trickle in. I'm gonna spin up this question board here in case we need it. Victor, have you joined us here before? Jaime, do you see Victor is frozen? Oh,
Yes,
you're on
it
mute.
looks like, yes. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So he's
So
frozen for
it's
you.
only Victor, not us.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Pete, Swapnil, are you able to show your face in the camera? We try to make this interactive, so join us if you will. And Victor, I know the temperatures are dropping. At least they are where I am. I'm in Utah, and our lows yesterday were like in the 20s, which is why I'm bundled up. Jaime, you're in Houston?
Yes,
Okay. It doesn't get that cold there, does it?
never. That's why we moved from Boston, Mass 3 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, no problem, Luciana. I appreciate it. I haven't heard anything from Pete and Swapnil. You guys, I'm gonna move you guys to wait list or the waiting room. Yeah, if you guys can't join us, you can't join us. Um, Luciana, you're good. I understand. Okay, let's just get started here. Um, you guys might have the floor here with the holiday and whatnot. I had some topics to talk about with respect to ghosting and, but if you guys have anything top of mind, would love to chat about it. Towards the end, I have a PSA, public service announcement, but other than that, I mean, what's on your mind?
So I think you may have answered this before, but open to work banner, yes or no?
Open to work banner.
Yes, on LinkedIn.
I don't hold that against people. I don't. Hi, Suhas. Um, I don't hold that against people. If you are out of work and you're open to work, it can help recruiters sort of zero in and find you faster. That's how I use it, right? If I'm sourcing for to build a pipeline for a job requisition, and I'm cruising through LinkedIn and I see somebody that fits, that turns up in search results that are looking that could be a fit for my position, and I see open for work. Um, what that tells me is that they're more likely to take a call with me, and I'm more likely to be able to get their attention quickly. That's what
Hmm.
it tells me. That's how I read into it. So, so yeah, for what that's worth, I know that some folks, I mean, the counter argument to that is that some folks feel like it might be a stigma or might come across as being desperate or whatnot. Um, and the other argument to it is that, if recruiters are doing a search, they're going to try to reach out to you anyway, regard if they feel that you're the right fit, regardless of whether you have that banner on or not. So I guess you just got to weigh the upsides versus the downsides. Some of the downsides could be maybe a perception that there's some sense of desperation. Um, but again, that doesn't come across to me. Um, I guess the upside could be that, again, if a recruiter is looking to try to talk with somebody that they find in the result set in the search query that they do in LinkedIn, that you'd probably be more responsive in terms of any outreach that they do to you. So that's kind
Hmm.
of from my perspective how I think about that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey Victor, you froze up there for a minute. Are you
Yeah, it crashed. The whole thing crashed.
okay? Where you calling in from, by the way?
Montreal, Canada.
So it is cold up there.
Actually, no, it's weird. It's so it's 24, 48,
Celsius.
60, 70 Celsius approximately.
Oh, 70 Fahrenheit.
70 Fahrenheit. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's
Okay.
weirdly warm.
I was joking with Jaime that maybe you froze because the weather is getting cooler now.
I mean, usually in Halloween, we already have some snow. It's usually snowing in Halloween. That's kind of traditional.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's super warm outside. It's weird.
Yeah. I live in Utah and the weather's already started to dip here. We have snow in the distant mountains that are sticking already. So have you Victor, forgive me, but have you joined these weekly coffee with recruiter sessions in the past?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay, I
think
thought you were
this is the third one.
okay, okay, awesome. So Jaime's here, you're here, Victor, obviously, Luciana and Suhas. If you guys could if you guys are open to turning your camera on, I'd love to see you. You guys pretty much have the floor. It seems like today's, a bit of a holiday, and so
Right.
um hey Suhas, thanks for joining us. Um, you know, basically I do this every week, as you guys know, and I've been a recruiter now for more than 10 years, and happy to field any questions that might provide some perspective, as you guys navigate your job search. So
So I have a bunch, but I think in general, I think one you mentioned a couple of sessions ago, it's ageism.
ageism, yeah.
So in my particular case, I'm 57, and so I've been in the industry for a while, 33 years. But I'm still as an individual contributor, so senior user experience designer. That's my standard position for the last, I don't know, 15 years.
Okay. Okay.
And so I feel like it, I mean, the competition is huge right now. But I'm wondering how can I use my experience as a strength instead of as a weakness, because
Yeah.
I'm getting the idea that I'm getting passed on because one of the reasons is age, but I don't know. Could be wrong.
Yeah. So a lot to unpack there. So ageism is real. It happens. I've worked with a lot of companies that they haven't been, it's kind of I don't know what's the word. It's not explicit, right? As a recruiter, I see it. So when I'm working with a client, and it's few and far between with the clients that I've worked with, but it's few and far between, but they won't tell me explicitly, oh, this person is too far along in their career, which even that's a little bit code, right? But a lot of times they won't tell me explicitly, but the people I get in front of them, right? They'll say things like, I'm not sure they're the right culture fit, or so the reality is, whether it's sort of overt or covert, the recruiter themselves might not be aware of it, right? And sometimes it's not even conscious on the part of the hiring manager, the hiring team. It might just be sort of pervasive as part of the culture, right? And just hypothetically, like if let's say you're interviewing with a company, a 50-person company, and if everybody in the company, including the founders and executives, are all under 30, which is not that uncommon, right? Then they're looking around, and what they see is sort of the norm. And when they see somebody that's, that's maybe a decade or two older than the oldest person in the company, right? They might interpret that as sort of a cultural misfit, right? And it might have nothing to do with your skills or your abilities or whatever, right? So I've seen it. It does exist. So some ways to combat that, right, is so the stigma really has a lot of what I've seen as far as the stigma or the concern that they have um is one that you might be uncomfortable reporting to somebody that's younger than you, right? And that's a real thing, right? That's a real thing. And you as a person that's been in or you as anybody out there that's worked in the industry for, a decade or two, that's a real thing. Like, are you okay? Especially if you're coming from a larger company where hierarchy, and there's like a bigger power distance, right? Um, you have to ask yourself if you're okay with that. Because some people will say that they're okay with it. Other people, they're really not okay with it, but they don't know that they're not okay with it, right? Can you report to somebody, let's say you're 40 years old, can you report to somebody that's 20 years old? Can you really do that? Right. And so that those are some of the things that come up when they're looking at hiring somebody that might not, fit what they perceive to be sort of the maybe the age norm within the company, right? The other thing too is sort of there's a stigma that, the person might be set in their ways, right? And so one way to combat that is to be at the leading edge of what's going on in your craft. So let's say user experience, right? I assume when you say user experience, you're referring to user experience with respect to like digital products or websites, apps, things like that. Is that fair? Okay? So so a lot's going on, right? I don't know if you're keeping up with AI and like in the future, like websites are the interface to websites or web apps or even our phone, it's evolving very quickly as AI is enabling and cognifying different aspects of user experience, right? And so being at the leading edge of the emerging technology and its applications to your craft, in this case, user experience, being able to speak intelligently about that. um, when you talk to a recruiter or a hiring manager, and you're talking bleeding edge sort of emerging technology and applications in your craft, I would argue that people will see past the age. You know, uh, if you're talking bleeding edge stuff, the signal you're sending to them is like, look, I have a lot of experience, but I'm also able to I'm also up to date on the emerging technologies and experience. And not only do I have a ton of experience to put that new experience into context, right? Because there's a lot of younger um, UX designers out there, right? Maybe they're in their 20s or whatever, that have only seen stuff for the past few years, right? But somebody that's been in it for 15 years, and then you have your other experience, right? In addition to that, I don't know what that was prior to UX, but that stuff is valuable in terms of providing context, and it's sort of it the context it provides. How do you say, like there's a wisdom. I'm a loss for words here. There's a wisdom aspect to that because you've seen more things over time. Now you're seeing emerging new technologies that your 30 years of experience provides a lot of context for what this means, right? Versus the person that's younger that's only seeing this. Yeah, they might be all up to date on this, but they don't have that other perspective that you have. And I would argue that the person that has this perspective and this perspective has much more wisdom, right? And so you have to sort of try to convey that in a way. And when you do that, I think for me, if I was talking to somebody that has both that 30 years experience or 20 years or whatever, but they also have that perspective on what's bleeding edge, for me, it's very powerful, right? And so I think to combat some of the ageism stuff, like if you could be really cutting edge and be really on top of what's going on, because things are moving so fast, right? With respect to technology and its applications, if you can understand those things and adapt them to your craft and being able to speak to them intelligently, I would argue for the right company, for the right team, people will see past that age thing. In fact, they'll probably give you more credit for the fact that you have that 30 years experience. And, maybe the way I phrased it, like, it provides that foundation for what we're doing today and what's being done today, so I don't know. I hope that helps a little bit, Victor.
Can you speak to an example of what you have seen recently on a particular case? This is me using my UX research
Yeah.
chops. Can you give me like a particular example of when you interviewed an older person? How did it go? What were you looking for? What were the important things you were looking for? Or I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 things that were like, oh yeah, this is important.
That would combat ageism, you mean?
Or not.
Yeah.
But basically just a particular example of an actual person that you interviewed that had a lot of experience. And so how did that go?
Yeah, no, so I've interviewed hundreds and, well, I would say thousands of people over my time.
Nice.
The people that stick out to me, particularly the folks that are further along in their career, are the people that um kind of like what I just said, like the people that have a ton of experience, but they're really up to date on what's going on today.
Okay.
They're not just resting on their laurels in terms of, oh, I have all this experience in whatever it may be, software development or architecture or whatever, right? Whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Because that's human nature, is to sort of rest on your laurels, rest on your experience,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the people that stick out to me are the people that, especially if they have a lot of experience, are the people that they know what's going on today, right? And for me, that speaks volumes, because it's 30 years ago or 20 years ago, like things moved slower, right? And you come up to speed and you're doing something for 5 years, you're an expert at that point, 10 years, whatever, you're an expert. But today, like nowadays, like you can become an expert very quickly on some niche portion or application of generative AI. It's very easy to become the expert because there's so many um there's so many niches you can go into, and there's nobody that could be an expert in all of them. But if you just
Yeah.
go hyper deep in one area, you can start calling yourself an expert, because you've done 98, 99% of what most people have done in that space,
Mhm.
at least in applications, right? It's
Yeah.
harder a little bit in developing actual new knowledge or new technologies from scratch. But in terms of applications or learning how to use these things in a particular use case, like you could very quickly become an expert in a niche. And so what sticks out to me when I'm interviewing somebody, especially somebody that has they're further along in their career and they have a lot of experience, is when they've sort of embraced new and emerging technologies and applications.
Okay.
And then, I mean, as far as an example in UX, I can't think of anything recent, but you could start looking at how AI is helping you as either a UX researcher or a designer, right? How are you integrating some of these tools into your own craft, right? And then even some of the things too, like I'm not a designer or anything, but I mean, I like to think that I can, create a logo and maybe put a website together, but but I don't claim to be a designer. But how people are interacting with websites, it's starting to change, right? Especially with these chatbots, and now these
Yeah.
chatbots are becoming even smarter and more, I don't know, more human, right? You can have voice chatbots, you can have even avatar bots that they're just getting better. So like at some point, you're not going to be interacting and typing stuff into a URL or a website and navigating or anymore. You're just going to have maybe this person on your phone that's an avatar, and you're just asking it questions in natural language using your voice, right? And it knows what you're looking for based on that, and it's giving you what you need. So like this idea now of like, and it sounds like you're more on the research side versus like UI design,
I do
but
both.
okay, so but like UI design, right? Like the days of like creating a flow chart and a navigation through static and dynamic pages, like I don't know how relevant that's going to be in the next 5 years, even in the next 2 years. I don't know,
Mm.
right?
All
Because the
right.
information now is like, it's so easy to get served up, uh, through generative AI, which can hyper personalize
Mm.
the delivery and the presentation of that content, of that information, based on what it knows about the user now.
I think
So
in
like,
general, the superpower in UX design is actually identifying the key problems your customer needs and then
yeah,
designing towards that to solve that.
okay,
That's
yeah,
the power.
yeah. And so, I mean, I haven't been thinking about this deeply, but in terms of how generative AI might help facilitate that, and what sort of innovations are going on in that space, and to the extent that you can speak to that, it could set you apart from other candidates.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
yeah. I hope that helps.
Yep.
I have a question.
Hey, Suhas, if I'm pronouncing
Uh,
your name correctly,
yeah, Suhas, that's
okay,
fine.
okay.
Yeah. So As a recruiter, I know we have ATS system which scans resumes and weeds out the participants. So when do you actually come into picture in reviewing the candidate resume? Is it the ones after the automated system parses the resume and picks the handful of resume, or is it before that? And
Wait, Suhas, what was your question? When do I, what?
as a recruiter, when do you come into picture in reviewing the candidate resume for a role?
When do I commit to the,
When do you come into picture?
oh, when do I come into the picture?
Yeah.
Oh,
So we have
yeah,
automated resumes, like we have screeners, right, where it reviews the candidate resume and weeds out based on the specifications. So as a recruiter, when do you come into picture in reviewing the candidate resume that is fit for the role?
yeah,
And my follow-up question is, uh, like, this is my based on my personal experience. I feel like, I'm fit for this role and I meet like probably like 90-95% of roles and responsibilities. What might be the reason where I'm not hearing back even after meeting 90-95% of the responsibilities? Like, what am I
yeah,
missing?
yeah, that's tough. Okay. So the first question. So right now, a lot of recruiters, a lot of job postings are getting a lot of inbound. So they're getting a lot of applicants. So a lot of times recruiters have, a lot of times a recruiter, internal or external, will have a number of job requisitions that they're managing. And so these requisitions they each have their own pipelines, meaning, there's a lot of folks that are coming inbound for each of these pipelines. So you can think of it as multiple stacks of resumes or applications or candidates that a given recruiter would have to deal with. And so just to give you that perspective, there are emerging technologies and tools and AI generated scanners and this and that can help the recruiter get their arms around the top of the funnel for each of their requisitions. And so I can't speak definitively about how all recruiters do it, but generally speaking, uh, a recruiter will see your resume, well, they'll see the stack of resumes, right? And this is usually in the form of an app, like Greenhouse, for example, right? They'll have a stack of candidates that come in, and when they came in, they'll have the resume, and sometimes they'll have questions that, if the recruiter wanted to, they could put questions as part of the application, and however the application is disseminated across different job boards, they'll get inbound to that, right? And so when they're looking at their ATS, their applicant tracking system, they'll see their job requisition, and they'll see, like, usually it's a count, like a count of how many people they have to work, the account of how many applications they've received, right? And so you think
Yeah.
about it as a funnel, right? So they have a number of applications they've received. They have a number of folks that are in this step of the process, a number of folks that are in this step. And so they're kind of managing that. And that's just one funnel for, let's say they have 5 or 10 requisitions they're working with. And so at the top of the funnel, they might have some tools that help sort of scan or look for different keywords, or maybe they're just doing some sort of scoring. But typically they'll have access to all the resumes, typically, right? At least in my experience, they'll have access to all the resumes. And uh you know I'm thinking about like these, I'm married, and I'm not on these dating sites, but I know that these dating sites have like these swipe left, swipe right thing, and they're presenting profiles very quickly, right? um there's a few so the point is that there are ATS systems that try to give recruiters a quick way or quick view into the applicant, and allows them to effectively move them forward, swipe left or swipe right, right? And so recruiters are kind of going through that process of looking at resumes, looking at applications, and they're a lot of times they're just looking at them quickly, and they're saying, okay, looks good. Okay, just push them forward. Okay, looks good enough. Push them forward. Too many typos. They live too far away, right? And they'll push them to the other side. And so a lot of times the recruiters will just kind of go through that process, this initial pass. So everything leading up to that is, right, they've received an application, and now they're doing a first pass. So recruiters typically do multiple passes. They're trying to get that stack of 500 resumes down to 50. And then once they got it down to 50, then they're looking a little bit more closely. But and so you don't want to get eliminated as part of that 500 to 50. You don't want to get eliminated for little things, typos, right? If your resume is difficult to read, or it seems like it's all over the place, or even like, oh, there's a gap in your resume that hasn't been addressed. that might be too much cognitive effort for the recruiter. So they might just swipe left and put you in the discard in the decline pile. So try not to give any excuse for them to eliminate your resume in that first pass, right? So little things that are pretty easy to fix, right? Typos, make your resume easy to read, formatting stuff, right? It's all on the internet. You can find that stuff. And then the second pass is usually like, okay, to what extent is this person a fit? That's where they start looking closer, right? So the first one is like they'll scan through your resume, titles look right, so the titles, right? Like, so if I'm recruiting for a VP position and I see this person is I don't know, a senior engineer, but I'm recruiting for a VP of engineering, that's the reason I would just move the person to the side. I wouldn't look anymore. It's just the titles don't line up, right? And so you have to make sure that your resume reflects an adequate match for the job opportunity, right? And if there's something else going on there, maybe you were a senior, maybe the equivalent of your senior title, maybe your senior title is equivalent to that VP position. So that's something you got to figure out, right? Because not all titles are normalized across companies, right? So
Got it.
I know there's a lot there. I'll try to address the other question. I have to jump here in a minute or two, but 95% of the fit, the reason you're not hearing back, there's a million reasons that you could not be hearing back. Part of it right now is that there's a lot more great talent out there than there is roles. And it's just sort of the nature of the cyclical nature of tech hiring, I assume you're in tech, tech
Yeah.
recruiting or tech hiring. And so that could be one reason. The other reason is maybe 95%, or even what you're saying is 95, 90, 98%. Maybe you're competing with people. Maybe there's just a hundred, there's a ton of people that are at that 99.5%. And if you're only at 98%, as good as that is, there's a lot more people ahead of you that are even a better fit, right? And so it's very competitive right now. And so that could be part of the reason you're not hearing back. I try to make it a case that if I talk to anybody as a recruiter for one of my roles, I will circle back with them and let them know if they're not the right fit. I don't just leave them dangling. And and that's people are getting frustrated by getting ghosted, right? I believe that if you talk to somebody at a company, or if you're talking to a candidate, if you get to the point where you're talking to them on the phone or on Zoom or whatever, that there should be some closure there, right? And usually the candidates are really good about checking in, saying, hey, just want to hear the status. It's usually the recruiters, the hiring managers that are not getting back to them, right? And um, yeah, the other reason could be timing. What I mean by timing is a lot of times the pipelines are still open, and companies and recruiters and hiring teams are the interview and recruiting process are getting drawn out. So what a process might look like 2 or 3 years ago, they could hire somebody from first interview to offer and acceptance in 3 to 4 weeks. Now maybe that's 3 to 4 months, right? In some cases, right? Because the companies are just slow rolling it so much, right? And they're just dragging it out for whatever. Well, I can think of a few reasons, but they're protracted, right? And so that could be a reason why you're not hearing back. And maybe you will hear back from them at some point, but it's just so protracted now, it's like, yeah. So that could be some of it. The other reason is just simply they're just too busy, or maybe you're not the right fit and they don't have the guts to tell you they don't feel you're the right fit. It happens, right? Some people don't like delivering bad news. It's tough sometimes, to deliver bad news, but they don't
Yeah.
realize that it's even tougher on the candidate if they don't get any closure, right? And so part of it is like finding your own sense of closure and keeping moving, and, trying not to let it get you down. So much of this job search is sort of just modulating the ups and downs, right? So I
Yeah.
hope that
And
helps us.
yeah, like I just have one follow-up question. On the
Yeah.
same lines, you said like I might be 98% and others might be 99.
Yeah.
So what exactly is important? Is it like hitting the keywords of the job description, or is it like showcasing like, I have done the responsibilities, like, because there are two different things. I might have done the things which the job demands, but I might have expressed it in a different way without actually writing the keyword. So what exactly prompts us to put us on top of the stack?
Well, and by the way, when you say you're not hearing back, are you saying that you've applied and then you
Ye-
never hear back, or you've applied, you've interviewed, and then you never hear back?
Oh, I applied and I never hear back. Like, some companies were applied like, 3 months ago, but I never hear back saying
Okay.
you're not being considered.
Yeah. So if you've applied and you just never heard back, that in my mind, that's different. That gets handled differently. I've seen it handled differently. So I'm of the opinion that we should always close the loop, right? But I've seen companies handle it differently. So for people that apply, they should configure something that once the pipeline is closed or once the job is filled or once they've evaluated your resume and they don't think you're going to be moving forward, they should circle back with you, whether that's a human circling back with you and writing you an actual human written message or having an automated message go back out to you. I'm of the opinion that one of those two things should happen, right? If you're not determined to be the right fit. The fact of the matter is there's a lot of companies that don't set it up that way, right? And so if you apply and they don't think you're the right fit, it's possible that you're just not hearing back from them because they haven't, even if they have determined that you're not the right fit for the role, they just don't have their operations aren't such that they're getting back to people. And it's unfortunate and it does affect people's mental health and like confidence. And so it's unfortunate that happens, but don't blame yourself for that, right? To get to that next level, there's so many things that are at play here. There's just so many things, right? You're competing with a lot of folks out there. So how you present your resume, how you make it compelling. I mean, your resume should be tailored, I think, for every job out there. And nowadays it's so easy to do that with ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
Your resume needs to be easily consumable, right? And on the top, the objectives piece, like you should be highlighting. It's sort of like the hook, right? You should be highlighting everything that about your experience that's completely relevant to the job description and to the company and to the culture, right? So once they're reading it, it's like, oh man, okay, I'm going to push you forward. And then when I do my next pass, like I'm going to read a lot deeper because your hook caught me, right? So there's a million things that could be going on in terms of why you might not be getting the sort of the callback or the least initial engagement after your application. But those are some of the big things that come to mind.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, you guys. I do have to run. I just want to say that my little public service announcement here. It's tough out there right now, you guys. Like, yeah, I know this is a small group here, but maybe what I share with you guys, you will share with other folks. I'm part of this Never Search Alone community, NSA, right? Never Search Alone. And the whole premise of that is to kind of, find some sense of camaraderie and support. I I've a friend of mine reached out to me the other day, and I won't go into the details, but it came to my attention that there's a lot of people suffering out there. And I thought of this idea of like never suffer alone, right? And I hope that I can give you guys some words of encouragement. And it might not be you, maybe it is you, but it might be somebody you know. There's a lot of folks, especially coming up in the holidays right now. Um, if you've ever heard of 988, it's a suicide and crisis support hotline. And if you or anybody um, is thinking about that, I would highly encourage you to use that line, especially coming up to the holidays. It's a tough time right now. I know a lot of people have been out of work for even over a year, and that could be completely demoralizing, and it adversely affects people's sense of identity. Their family relationships can all suffer, and the point is don't suffer alone, right? 988. If anybody needs that, commit that to memory and share it to anybody that you speak with, especially coming up into the holidays, because there's a lot of people out there that on the surface they might seem they're doing okay, but there's a lot going on that they might be suffering from. So please share that. I just want to pass that along, and And if there's anything I could do for you guys, let me know. All right. Okay. Thank you guys.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
great
Okay.
Halloween. All
You
right.
too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you guys.